The sound of the front door slamming echoed through our house like a gunshot. I didn't flinch. I'd been expecting this moment for weeks now, ever since I'd noticed the lipstick stains and the late night phone calls my husband thought I was too stupid to notice. What I hadn't expected was the girl. She walked in behind Marcus like she owned the place, one hand resting protectively on her rounded belly, the other clutching a designer handbag I recognized from the boutique downtown. She couldn't have been more than 25, with long dark hair and the kind of confidence that comes from never having had anything truly difficult happen to you yet. I was folding laundry in the living room when they entered. I set down the towel I'd been holding and looked up calmly, my hands steady. Marcus cleared his throat. He had the decency to look uncomfortable, at least, though that might have been more about the situation than any actual remorse. "Sarah, we need to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "It certainly seems that way." The girl stepped forward, her chin lifted. "I'm Brittany. I'm carrying Marcus's baby." The words hung in the air like smoke. I saw Marcus wince slightly, and his sister Diane, who had followed them in with the eager energy of someone who loved drama, actually smiled. Diane had never liked me. Too independent, she'd once said. Too unwilling to play the dutiful wife. I folded my arms and leaned back against the couch. "Is that so?" Marcus found his voice then, and it came out defensive and sharp. "You never gave me a child, Sarah. 5 years of marriage, and what do we have? Nothing. Maybe you're the problem." I let the silence stretch. Let them think I was wounded. Let them believe they'd landed a blow. Diane moved closer to her brother, her hand touching his arm in solidarity. "It's true, Sarah. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. You've always been so focused on your career, your independence. Maybe that's God's way of telling you something." The cruelty in her voice was almost impressive. I'd always known Diane resented me for not conforming to her idea of what a wife should be, for not deferring to Marcus in all things, for maintaining my own bank account and my own life. Brittany was watching me with something like triumph in her eyes. She moved to Marcus's other side, creating a united front against me. "He needs a real family, a woman who can give him what he needs." I looked at the three of them standing there, so certain of their righteousness, so confident in their narrative. Marcus, the wronged husband seeking what his wife couldn't provide. Brittany, the younger, fertile woman who could give him everything. Diane, the loyal sister supporting her brother's happiness. It would have been almost touching if it weren't so pathetically predictable. I walked to my desk in the corner of the room, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out a manila folder. I'd been carrying it with me for 3 weeks now, waiting for exactly this moment. Some part of me had known it would come to this. Marcus was nothing if not dramatic. "That's an interesting story," I said, my voice calm and measured. "The only problem is that it's based on a rather significant factual error." I opened the folder and pulled out a document. Medical letterhead, official stamps. Numbers and terminology that left no room for interpretation. "You see, Marcus, I happen to have a copy of your fertility test. The one you took 2 years ago when we first started trying. The one you never told me the results of. The one you said was fine when I asked." I held up the paper so they could all see it. The numbers were damning. Sperm count, critically low. Motility, severely impaired. Fertility prognosis, extremely unlikely without significant medical intervention. Marcus's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter?" I walked closer, the paper still held up like a shield. "What matters is that according to this medical document signed by Dr. Harrison Chen at Metro Fertility Clinic, you are functionally infertile, have been for at least 2 years, probably longer." Brittany's hand went to her stomach. An unconscious protective gesture. Her face had lost some of its color. "That's impossible. He would have told me. You're lying." "Am I?" I looked directly at Marcus. "Tell her, Marcus. Tell her about the appointment you made me skip work for, the one where they told you the truth. Tell her about how you blamed me for years, made me think I was the problem, when you knew all along it was you." Diane stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You forged this. You're trying to destroy him because you're bitter and jealous." I laughed then, a short, sharp sound. "Forge a medical document? That's your theory? Call the clinic, Diane. Ask for Dr. Chen. The number's right there at the top of the page." Marcus grabbed for the paper, but I pulled it back. No, I'm keeping this. I've already made several copies, by the way, just in case something happened to the original. Brittany was staring at Marcus now, her confidence cracking like thin ice. Marcus, is this true? He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. I. The test wasn't accurate. There are false positives. It doesn't mean. False positives, I interrupted. The terminology you're looking for is false negatives, and no, this wasn't one. Your count was so low, the doctor recommended we consider alternative options immediately. You remember what you said to me when I asked what the doctor said? Marcus said nothing. You told me everything was fine. You told me the problem must be with me. For 3 years, Marcus. 3 years of letting me think I was the one failing us. Brittany's voice was small now, uncertain. But I'm pregnant. I turned to look at her. And for the first time since she'd walked into my house, I felt something like pity. Yes, you are. Which raises a rather interesting question, doesn't it? The implication hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Marcus was looking at Brittany now, really looking at her. I could see the wheels turning in his head, the doubt creeping in. Brittany. She stepped back, her hand tightening on her purse. No, no, Marcus, it's yours. I swear it's yours. According to medical science, that's virtually impossible, I said quietly. Not completely impossible, mind you, there's always a chance, but extremely, extremely unlikely. Diane was looking between her brother and his mistress now, her earlier confidence wavering. This is ridiculous. She's clearly trying to turn you against each other. Can't you see that? But Marcus wasn't listening to his sister anymore. He was staring at Brittany with a look that combined betrayal, anger, and something that might have been fear. Who else have you been seeing? His voice was low, dangerous. Brittany's eyes widened. No one. Marcus, I haven't. Don't lie to me. He moved toward her and she backed up. If I'm infertile, if that test is real, then who's the father? It's yours. Her voice rose, desperate now. The test is wrong. She's lying. I walked back to my desk and sat down, watching the scene unfold with a strange detachment. This was what betrayal looked like when it came full circle. This was justice, not because I'd orchestrated it, but because the truth had a way of surfacing eventually. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm calling Dr. Chen right now. Marcus. Don't. Brittany reached for his arm, but he shook her off. Why not? If Sarah's lying, this will prove it. The phone rang once, twice. Someone answered. Marcus put it on speaker. Metro Fertility Clinic, this is Jennifer. Yes, I need to speak with Dr. Chen. It's about my test results from 2 years ago. Marcus Howard. There was a pause. Let me see if he's available. May I ask what this is regarding? I need to verify some information about my fertility test results. Another pause. Sir, I'm looking at your file now. Those results would have been discussed with you during your follow-up appointment. If you need copies, we can. Were the results accurate? Was I really? Were they as bad as the report said? The nurse's voice became more cautious, professional. Sir, I can't discuss specific medical details over the phone without proper verification, but I can confirm that all our tests go through rigorous quality control. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with Dr. Chen to discuss your results or potential treatments. Marcus hung up. His hand was shaking. Brittany was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Marcus, please, you have to believe me. But he wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at me, and there was something broken in his expression. How long have you known about your infertility? I found the actual test results about a month ago. You'd hidden them in your office desk behind the old tax returns. I was looking for our insurance information. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you? I countered. You had 2 years to tell me the truth. 2 years, to be honest? Instead, you blamed me. You made me doubt myself. You let your sister tell me I was defective. Diane made a small sound, but no one looked at her. I was ashamed, Marcus said quietly. I didn't want to. I thought maybe if we kept trying. But we didn't keep trying, did we? I leaned forward. You stopped wanting to be intimate with me about 1.5 years ago. You pulled away. You started staying late at the office. You started seeing her. I gestured toward Brittany, who had sunk onto the couch, her face in her hands. So the question isn't why I didn't say anything, I continued. The question is why you're so surprised that your infertile sperm couldn't create a baby. Marcus turned back to Brittany. His voice was cold now. Who is he? Marcus. Who is the father of your baby? She looked up, tears still streaming. It doesn't matter. I love you. We can still answer the question. The silence stretched so long, I thought she might not answer at all. Then quietly, his name is Tyler. He was just someone I was seeing before you and I got serious. But I broke it off. I swear I did. This happened before. Get out. Brittany's head snapped up. What? Get out of my house. Get out of my life. We're done. But Marcus, I'm pregnant. You need to leave. His voice was shaking now. You lied to me. You tried to pass off another man's child as mine. You helped me humiliate my wife. He glanced at me. For nothing. Brittany stood up, wobbly on her heels. She looked at me, and I saw hatred flash across her face. This is your fault. You poisoned him against me. No, I said calmly. You did that all by yourself. I just provided the facts. Diane grabbed Brittany's arm. Come on, let's go. We should go. For once, Diane seemed uncertain. Her usual self-righteousness deflated. She'd backed the wrong horse, supported the wrong narrative, and now she had to face the consequences of her meddling. They left together, Brittany's sobs echoing in the hallway as Diane guided her out. The front door closed with a soft click. Marcus and I stood in silence. The house felt different now, emptier somehow, even though it was just the two of us like it had been for years. I'm sorry, he said finally. I'm so sorry, Sarah, for all of it. For lying, for blaming you, for bringing her here, for… Stop. I held up my hand. I don't want your apology. But You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you were humiliated. You're not sorry for what you did to me? Not really. If Brittany hadn't been pregnant, if she'd just been your mistress, would you have ended it? Would you have told me the truth? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I walked to my desk again and pulled out another folder. This one was thicker, filled with documents I'd been preparing for weeks. I want a divorce. Marcus's face went gray. Sarah, please, we can work through this. Marriage counseling, therapy, whatever you need. I don't need anything from you. I handed him the folder. I've already consulted with an attorney. I'm filing on grounds of adultery, which is still legal grounds in this state. Given your affair and your deception about the fertility issue, my lawyer is confident we can secure a favorable settlement. He opened the folder, flipping through the pages with shaking hands. You're taking the house? I'm taking what's mine. The house was inherited from my grandmother, in case you've forgotten. It was never community property. Your name might be on the mortgage payments, but the deed is in my name alone. What about everything else? I've outlined my terms. You'll get your fair share of the assets we accumulated during the marriage. The joint accounts will be divided equally. Your 401k, your car, your personal belongings. But my inheritance, my separate investments, my business account, those remain mine. Marcus slumped into a chair. He looked older suddenly, diminished. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You meant all of it, I said softly. You just didn't mean to face the consequences. He looked up at me, and I saw something like genuine remorse in his eyes. Did you ever love me? It was a fair question. I thought about it carefully before answering. Yes, I loved the man I thought you were. The one who was honest with me, the one who treated me like a partner instead of a prop in his life story. But that man doesn't exist, does he? Maybe he never did. I can change. Maybe, but not for me. Not anymore. I gathered my papers and stood. You should probably find somewhere else to stay tonight. I'd like you out by the end of the week. My attorney will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Sarah, wait. But I was already walking out of the room, leaving him sitting there with his folder full of legal documents and the ruins of his lies. The next few weeks passed in a blur of attorney meetings and paperwork. Marcus moved out to his sister's place, which felt like poetic justice given how much Diane had encouraged his worst instincts. I heard through mutual friends that Brittany had gone back to Tyler, the real father, and they were trying to make it work. Diane tried to call me once to apologize, she said, but I let it go to voicemail. Some bridges were better off burned. Marcus contested the divorce at first, tried to claim he deserved more of the assets, but my attorney was sharp and experienced. She'd handled dozens of cases like mine. Women whose husbands had underestimated them thought they could manipulate and control without consequence. When the medical records came into evidence, not just his infertility test, but also the documented timeline of his affair with Brittany, his attorney advised him to settle. Fighting would only make it worse, cost him more in legal fees, and expose him to even greater humiliation. The settlement came through on a Tuesday. I sat in my attorney's office, signing the final papers, watching as years of marriage dissolved into legal language and property divisions. "You did well," my attorney said as I stood to leave. "A lot of women in your position try to be accommodating, try to be nice. You stood your ground." "I just wanted what was fair," she smiled. "Fair is exactly what you got." I walked out into the sunshine, breathing in the warm spring air. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend Rachel asking if I wanted to meet for coffee. I typed back a quick yes as I drove across town. I thought about everything that had happened: the betrayal, the confrontation, the divorce. It would have been easy to feel bitter, to let Marcus's actions poison me from the inside out. But instead, I felt light, free. He'd tried to make me small, to blame me for his inadequacies, to replace me with someone younger and more compliant. And in doing so, he'd lost everything: his wife, his mistress, his sister's blind support, his dignity. I'd lost a husband who never valued me. That wasn't really a loss at all. Rachel was waiting for me at the coffee shop, her smile warm and genuine. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected," I said truthfully. "Actually, I feel good." "Good enough to start planning that trip to Italy you always talked about?" I thought about it. The freedom I now had, the financial security, the lack of anyone telling me what I could or couldn't do. "Yes," I said. "I think I am." We ordered our coffee and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the street. Rachel talked about her work, her kids, the latest drama in her neighborhood. Normal things, comfortable things. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. It was Marcus. "I saw Brittany today, with Tyler and the baby. They look happy. I hope you know I really did love you once. I'm sorry I forgot how." I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Some things didn't deserve an answer. Rachel noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I said, and I meant it. 3 months later, I stood in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, looking at Botticelli's Birth of Venus. The museum was crowded with tourists, their voices echoing off the stone walls, but I barely noticed them. I'd taken a month off work, using vacation time I'd been saving for years. Marcus had always said we couldn't afford extended travel, that we needed to be practical, to save for the future. But the future was now, and it was mine alone. My phone rang. I ignored it at first, too absorbed in the painting, but it rang again. I checked the screen. My attorney. "Sarah, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all. What's up?" "I just wanted to let you know that Marcus's attorney reached out. Apparently Diane is selling her house and Marcus is looking for a place to stay. He was wondering if you'd be willing to let him stay in the guest house temporarily while he gets back on his feet." I laughed, a short, sharp sound that made a nearby couple turn to look at me. "Is this a joke?" I told them it was inappropriate, but they asked me to pass along the message. The answer is no, absolutely not. In fact, please make it clear that any future communication from Marcus needs to go through you. I don't want to hear from him directly." "Understood. I thought that would be your answer, but I had to ask. How's Italy?" "Beautiful. Exactly what I needed." "Good. You deserve it. I'll handle this situation with Marcus. Enjoy your trip." I hung up and looked back at the painting. Venus rising from the sea, perfect and untouchable. A goddess emerging from chaos into clarity. That night, I sat at a small restaurant near my hotel, eating handmade pasta and drinking wine that cost more than Marcus had ever been willing to spend on a bottle. An older Italian man at the next table caught my eye and smiled. American? He asked in accented English. Yes, first time in Florence. Ah, wonderful. You must see everything. The Duomo, the Ponte Vecchio, the Boboli Gardens. I plan to. We talked for a while, easy conversation about travel and art and the differences between our countries. He was a widower, he told me, traveled frequently now that his children were grown. He understood the freedom that came from starting over. When the check came, he insisted on paying for my meal. A beautiful woman should not eat alone in Florence, he said. It is not right. I accepted the gesture gracefully, thanked him, and went back to my hotel. That night, lying in bed with the windows open and the sounds of the city drifting in, I thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. Marcus's betrayal had felt like the end of something when it happened. But it wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning. I fell asleep smiling. When I returned home a month later, tanned and rested, my house felt different. Not because anything physical had changed, but because I saw it differently now. This wasn't the place where my marriage had died. It was the place where my new life had begun. I unpacked slowly, putting my souvenirs in carefully chosen spots. A small bronze sculpture from Florence, a watercolor from Venice, a photograph I'd taken of the Amalfi Coast at sunset. My phone rang. Rachel, you're back. How was it? Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Good, because I have someone I want you to meet. His name is David. He's a friend of Tom's from law school. Divorced. 2 kids who live with their mom, works in environmental law. I think you two would really get along. I thought about it. The idea of dating felt strange after everything that had happened, but not unpleasant. Not scary, just new. Okay, I said, set it up. Really? Just like that? Just like that, Rachel laughed. Look at you. Italy changed you. No, I said, looking around at my house, my space, my life. I changed me. Italy just gave me the space to do it. We met the following weekend at a wine bar downtown. David was tall, with graying hair and kind eyes. We talked about our jobs, our lives, what we were looking for. I have to be honest, he said halfway through the evening. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. My divorce was rough, and I'm still figuring things out. That's fair, I said. I just got divorced too. Rough doesn't begin to cover it. What happened, if you don't mind me asking? I gave him the abbreviated version. The affair, the lies, the confrontation. He listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. Wow, he said when I finished. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, but it also taught me something important. What's that? That I'm stronger than I thought. That I don't need someone else to validate my worth. That I can stand alone and be perfectly fine. He smiled. That's a good lesson to learn. I'm still working on it myself. We talked for hours, closing down the bar. When he walked me to my car, he didn't try to kiss me. He just asked if he could see me again. I'd like that, I said. Driving home, I felt content in a way I hadn't in years. Not because of David, though he seemed nice enough, but because I'd sat across from someone new, told him my story and felt no shame, no embarrassment, no need to minimize or explain away Marcus's actions. I'd owned my experience, and it felt powerful. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a letter from Marcus. My attorney forwarded it to me with a note. You don't have to read this if you don't want to. But I did read it. He wrote about regret and shame, about therapy and self-reflection. He wrote about how he'd realized too late what he'd had, what he'd thrown away. He wrote asking if there was any chance, any possibility that we could try again. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in a drawer. I didn't respond. Some questions didn't deserve answers. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. I was having coffee with Rachel when she asked me if I had any regrets. About what? The divorce, ending things with Marcus, being so decisive about it all. I thought about the question carefully. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. I regret the time I wasted hoping he'd change, hoping he'd be honest. But ending it, that was the best decision I ever made. Do you think you'll ever get married again? Maybe, if I find someone who treats me like an equal, someone who values honesty and respect. But if I don't, that's okay too. I'm happy on my own. And I was. Truly, deeply happy in a way I'd never been during my marriage. I traveled more, took up painting, reconnected with old friends. I dated occasionally. David and I had gone out a few more times before mutually deciding we were better as friends. But I was never desperate for companionship. I'd learned to enjoy my own company. One evening, about a year after everything had happened, I was sitting on my porch watching the sunset when a car pulled up. Diane got out, walking slowly up my driveway. I considered going inside, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Sarah. Diane. She looked older, tired. Can we talk? That depends on what you want to talk about. I want to apologize for everything, for how I treated you, for encouraging Marcus, for all of it. I waited. He's living with me again, she continued. Lost his job, can't afford his own place. He's broken. And I realize now that I helped break him. That I encouraged his worst instincts because I didn't like that he'd married someone I couldn't control. That's honest, at least. You were always too good for him. I knew it then, but I couldn't admit it. I wanted him to have someone more traditional, more like me. But you weren't wrong for wanting to be treated with respect. You weren't wrong for expecting honesty. I know I wasn't wrong, Diane. I don't need your validation for that. She nodded slowly. I know, I needed to say it. Not for you. For me. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you got out. I'm glad you didn't let him drag you down with him. I watched her drive away, and I felt a strange sense of closure. Not forgiveness, exactly, but an acknowledgement that everyone involved had paid a price for Marcus's deception. Even Diane, in her own way. The sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink. I poured myself a glass of wine and toasted the sky. To new beginnings, to hard-won wisdom, to the strength that comes from standing alone and discovering you're perfectly capable of standing. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Dinner this Sunday? I want to hear all about your trip to Greece. I just booked the tickets that morning. 3 weeks exploring Athens, Santorini, and Crete. Another adventure, another chapter. I texted back, sounds perfect, can't wait to tell you everything. And I couldn't, because my life, the one I'd built from the ashes of a failed marriage and shattered trust, was full of possibility, full of freedom, full of everything I'd been denied when I tried to make myself smaller to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. Marcus had thought he was punishing me by bringing his mistress home, by forcing a confrontation. He'd thought I would crumble, beg, make myself even smaller to keep him. Instead, I'd expanded, grown, become more fully myself than I'd ever been. That was my revenge. Not his humiliation, though that had been satisfying. Not his loss, though he'd lost plenty. My revenge was my joy, my freedom, my absolute refusal to let his actions define me. I finished my wine and went inside. Tomorrow I'd start planning my Greece trip in earnest, but tonight I'd simply exist in this moment, in this space I'd claimed as entirely my own. And that, I thought as I locked my door and turned off the lights, was more than enough.